The scariest stories are the ones that are true. When I was 16 in the mid-1990s, I used to run away from my crappy living situation at home, and spend weeks-long excursions at my older teenage friends' places. One of these Havelwise Anidis was my friend Jay's apartment, located at the very top of a mostly empty 5-story complex, in an absolutely terrifying high-crime part of the city. The entire building, except the very bottom floor, was vacant except for Jay. It was a particularly isolating sense of freedom being there, as well as extra creepy. Upon Jay's moving into said dump, we noticed something remarkable right away. This place was undeniably and very obviously haunted. This was made known the very moment I cleared the threshold on moving day, carrying a heavy box of Jay's books. A large, warm hand ran straight up the back of my bare right thigh. I was wearing a tiny skirt even though it was autumn, because teenager, and the sensation of the hand running up the back of my upper thigh turned to a pinch of my butt cheek. I was frozen, of course, and could only think to fretfully call out to Jay, who was in the bedroom inflating a $10 air mattress. Jay, did you just pinch my butt? She stuck her head out of the room and looked at me like I was insane, and responded, no? I told her what had just happened, and instead of scared, she seemed amused, because it was a silly situation to describe. After this incident, though, there was no end to the weird shit that routinely comprised an average day in his tiny one-bedroom. Set something down? It would disappear immediately. Walk into a room? The door would slam behind you, only to immediately reopen itself. Ready to force yourself to sleep through the confusion and only slightly amusing terror? Hear the sounds of dishes and cupboards being banged around in the kitchen. One night Jay's boyfriend stayed over, and the guy woke up the next morning with a stinging red bite mark on his wrist. The teeth marks didn't match his or Jay's, or mine, and we had been the only three there. So it was absolutely no surprise when Jay's house keys went missing. We tore the place apart looking for them, to no avail. It was Christmas Eve, so getting in touch with the apartment office to get a replacement key was not possible. Jay's mom, in the meantime, had invited the two of us over for dinner that night, so we made the decision to just leave the door unlocked this once, so we could go. We won't be gone long, we reckoned, and headed out bundled up for the walk to Jay's mom's house. We ended up leaving a bit later than expected, about 11 p.m., but the streets were totally isolated by this point due to the holiday and freezing weather. This made it particularly noticeable when we realized we were being followed home. The man behind us was making no effort to disclose his action. He came out of absolutely nowhere, and stayed behind us keeping a pace of only about 9 or 10 feet. I looked over at Jay, and this was the first time I had ever in my life seen her scared. The man behind us was easily 6 feet 5 inches, 300 pounds of fat and muscle. If you've ever seen a professional NFL player in real life, he was that size. His black eyes were laser focused on us, a couple of scrawny teenagers in thrift store polyester bell-bottoms. We were clearly poor, so he must have wanted, I don't know, something else from us, which gave this whole scenario an even darker turn. We increased our pace, he increased his pace. We turned a corner, he turned a corner. Unfortunately, every shop or business front we passed was closed, and cell phones were still brick-sized novelties used only by Miami Vice villains or dickheads in convertibles. There was literally no one else around except the three of us, lit only by passing Christmas lights. We finally approached the apartment stairs. We are terrified to go up and announce where we live to this freak, but we didn't know what else to do but to get inside, lock the door, and maybe call the cops if we had to. We ascend to the first stair landing. He follows. Second floor. Third floor. Jay and I are sharing looks of panic as we try and remain calm as he clumps slowly right behind us. Fourth floor. There he is, close enough to reach out and grab us. We get to the apartment door, and the man has stopped, and is now just staring at us intently from the landing. Waiting. As Jay and I stare helplessly at each other for what seemed like an eternity. I discreetly reach to open the door, and it is locked. Deadbolted from the inside. I start to sweat and almost scream, when Jay decided to knock on the door. I began knocking, too, and said as casually cheerfully as I could to the door, "Hey, it's us. Open up." The deadbolt clicked. The man, seeing that there was someone unseen inside the apartment, turns around on the landing, and walks away. We run inside, slam and lock the door behind us. Pretty sure we pushed the couch in front of the door, as well. We holler out "thank you" to the ghost, and laugh nervously at our sudden relief of fear, though still too shaken up to talk about what just happened, any of it. The next morning, Jay's house keys were mysteriously returned to the bare counter by the door, where she'd always kept them. It did not occur to me until later, that had the keys not been missing, this gigantic night stalker would have known that we were there all alone.